Okay, this lesson for the Cornet Project class, somewhat of a summary, some conclusions we can now decisively make. We've given a challenge. I called it the Charles Stanley challenge, where could someone find a word, a term for unfathered, unsaved, unsanctified, unloved, unjustified? Of course not. So that doesn't exist. So when we speak of things like the once saved, always being saved, that's the grammar. So that's something that we won't really refute. The term doesn't exist. So there'll never be a word where someone who having been fathered out from God, for example, in our 1 John 5:1 that we know so well. And yes, some of you pointed out where I wrote down the perfect active indicative where it was perfect passive. So you all are getting better. So we had our everyone who is believing, make this some conclusive things, believing that Jesus Estin is O Christos. And then that's where we had the reduplicated stem, genetai, perfect, passive, indicative, and that has been previously fathered and is always being fathered. So everyone, the one who is believing that. And this is always continuous. Jesus is, you all have this, is the Christ, has been fathered. And of course with the always continuance, always being fathered. And you remember in the text you had ek to theou preceded the verb, out from thee, God. So there will never be an occurrence of genao, the verb genao, that precedes finite verb histouo. Now, I understand now there are types of Calvinists, whatever that would mean, who don't subscribe to R.C. Sproul's very definitive, adamant assertion of the axiom of Reformed theology that regeneration precedes faith. So I don't know what that means, except for our class, we just stay with the language. We also know there's no causal function of genao. For example, we remember in Galatians 2:16, it said adotes, that perfect active participle, and that was as ones who having noticed, always noticing that no kind of man is justified out in any kind of works of any kind of law. So this reality here that this one challenge, the Calvinist challenge, it was meant to be very academic and to be for the purpose of objective study, and you all did very well. So we learned there is no genao that precedes pisteuo. There is no causal. This was adverbial causal participle. And it functioned in relationship to pisteuo. Remember Paul said, even we believed, and it was aorist, active, even we believed, even we ourselves believed into Jesus, so that we have a causal participle with relationship to pistuo in Galatians 2:16, and it is not gennao. So again, I think that's very conclusive. We also remember as I began with, the Charles Stanley challenge, because he made a statement in one of his books that there should be a word somewhere, some explanation in detail about how to reverse. And I really like that word, how to reverse being fathered out from God, being saved by the Son, being sanctified by the Spirit, being justified perfectly, being loved perfectly. All that we know the perfect passive participles indicate, and even the perfect passive tense in finite verbs. So this was conclusive. Now we don't have anything here to look at. So there's no term out there. No term for unfathered, unsaved, unsanctified. So those two challenges are concluded. Also, when it came to some of the disputations, you remember, between young versus old, you'll notice now that there is no world or any reality in which there is only chronological time. So there's no such thing as only chronological time. There's no such thing as only geological time. And of course, finally, there's no such thing as only biological time. And there are a lot of studies now on the different age decay rates from even animals decay differently. Even when we were children, my father had the hardest time explaining to me why my dog was the estimate back then, the guess was 7 years per year. And so I would say, why is he so old? What's wrong with him? And he would try to explain that we may have only had him 5 years, but he's actually 35 in dog years. So I'm not sure how the argument in young versus old lost sight of chronological, geological, and biological. But those are Bible words, chronos, and the geological and biological. Those are Bible words. So these are very conclusive things. It might surprise some of you in this class to learn that a lot of people just don't know where to go now. Where do we go if the axiom of Reformed theology, regeneration precedes faith, is demonstrated conclusively that does not exist, nor in a causal relation? Well, really not a flummox for us who weren't involved in adamant affirmation of it. It's just as it's not a problem for us to learn that there's no term for being unfathered by the Father, unsaved by the Son, unsanctified by the Spirit. And there's certainly not one for being unjustified. When Jesus said of the publican, that man went to his house as one who, having been justified, declared right. And it's as one declared right, always being declared right, perfect participle as well, passive as well. So these are large matters. It's just for us, we have our text, we have the Bible. We're not really shaken when we learn that which others have constructed or inferred from the text. So it could be useful. I don't really know where you'll find many people who are doing research where they acknowledge the Bible. Now, if you attended the seminary like I did, they recognize the reality of chronological time, geological time, biological time. So Bible words are very prevalent, and they still are very useful in the covenant community where you, for example, those of you that are participating here at Landmark Baptist Church in Jacksonville, Arkansas, you engage this. So you're not thrown, you're not taken back, you're not destabilized, if you will. So that's good. This is good conclusions that we have concluded. The Calvinist challenge is over. Charles Stanley challenge is over with. We noticed the dispute, for example, in the young versus old. was if you suppose a world where there's only chronological time or geological time or biological. So that's enough for this, some of these major conclusions. We have several more. We'll come to those and approach that as we go. So you have a blessed day. Enjoy this lesson.